and write your own biography. And believe it or not, you are an interesting person. Make sure this is working. So biographies are not just for celebrities. As a matter of fact, I find celebrity biography sometimes really boring. It's just all about the hype, right? It's all about selling and the shock factor. When we're all entitled to have a biography, and your story is always one that's worth telling. So if you have made, everyone here has made some type of meaningful impact in this world, whether it's to yourself, to your children, your grandchildren, people around you. You've made some kind of an impact. And writing your own biography, what it does, it'll leave your written legacy for those left behind you. And it's going to save your children a lot of money because they don't have to go and buy these ancestry programs to find out who they are. You're going to tell them who you are. And you get the best part about writing your own biography is that you get to reconstruct the narrative of your own life. And the most important thing about writing your biography is that it will help you connect with your children and your friends and family. And what a great Christmas gift it would make. And you say, oh, but wait, I'm no Agatha Christie. I don't know how to write. Well, that's what I'm going to teach you. Where do you start? Well, you're going to start at the first chapter. Well, actually, it's not always the first chapter. When I write a book, the secret to writing a book is I use Post-it notes. And I don't give chapters numbers. I give them names, just the names of characters and who's in the book. And then it's like a puzzle. I can move those chapters around. The first chapter I write may actually be the 10th chapter. It could be the last chapter. All those chapters are movable. You don't have to commit to numbering them. When it's finished, you can move it all around. Doesn't matter. So what you need to do is you need to think about the WH, the W5, and the H's, the who, what, when, where, and why. Every chapter will start with the first paragraph. And that first paragraph should answer who you are, why you're writing about, when it happened, where it happened, why it happened, and how it happened. That's always the first chapter. If you pick up a news article, in that first line of every news article, it's going to tell you, today in Alaska, this happened to this person, and this is why it happened. That's the first article. Because when you write in news, it's always an inverted pyramid. The most important information goes at the front. You should be able to take every paragraph after that and delete it. And that story will still make sense because the who, what, when, where, why, and how are in that first chapter. Everything after that is just filler. Hopefully this is working. So then you have to ask yourself, who am I writing this for? Well, the first thing people will say to me is, will I ever get it published? No, I guarantee you right now. Very few books actually get published. Will you make money off it? Even published books don't make a lot of money. Believe me, you're not going to pay your mortgage being a writer. Very few do, unless you're J.K. Rowling, you're not paying your mortgage with your writing. But don't even think about publishing. You think about, you're writing this story to leave this behind. You're writing it for your children. Or for your family. This is the only people you're writing it for. Now, if it happens to get picked up by a publisher and turn you into a millionaire and you can buy a castle over in Scotland next to J.K. Rowling, then good for you. But I'm telling you, don't put money on it. Then you think about your audience. Who is your audience? Well, you're thinking about, your audience should be those around you. Always, when I write a book, when I write a crime thriller, I'm thinking about the audience. I know my audience is probably 30 years and over. So I'm not going to put Taylor Swift in my crime thrillers. I'm going to be thinking about that age group. And applying it to there. And same with the words. You try to use words that are very simple. You don't want somebody who's going to be reading your biography who constantly has to have a dictionary next to them to look up the words in the book. Very simple. A newspaper is written for actually the grade 5 level. Every news article is written for the grade 5 level. Because people don't want to research. People are lazy now. They don't want to read. They don't want to watch videos that are more than 30 seconds. So you have to be careful and know your audience. And then you're thinking about passing down your family history or your parents' history or your grandparents' history. You're going to be passing down this history to those around you so they don't have to go looking up for it and find the wrong grandfather and chasing and find out that they're related to the King of England when they're actually were probably related to one of his servants. So you want to make sure you get everything right in your history. And then don't worry about how big or how many words should be in it. If it does get published, there'll be an editor who will go through it and slash and burn it and make you cry. So that's what editors do. And if you want to have it professionally edited, you can pay somebody. Usually costs about anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 to have an editor read your book and go through it. But once again, you can just have a spouse read it. That's what I do. I get my husband to read mine first, pick up my grammar mistakes, my spelling mistakes, and question everything. And that works out well. Then it goes to the editor. Then the editor slashes and burns and makes me cry. That's what editors do. That's their job. So what should you write about? Well, here's how you're going to start. Think of your life as a movie. In every movie, think about John Travolta's Saturday Night Fever. Everybody remember that first scene in Saturday Night Fever? It's John Travolta. He's in this disco clothes. He's walking down a street in New York. He's walking with attitude. This guy's almost dancing. He's in the groove. Everybody around him's kind of glancing. He's good looking. He's got that swagger about him. Just from looking at him, we can pretty much think of what his personality is like. We know this guy got swagger. We know he's cool. We're going to want to sit next to him on the bus. He is definitely a guy you want to know. This is the party guy. That's what you get from the opening image. So when you start your biography, think of that. If your life was a movie, what would the opening image be? Would it be you hiking on a mountain? Would it be you driving in a car, a race car? What would that opening image be? Maybe it'll be you riding on a whale. So what would that opening image be in your movie? And then, of course, every movie has to have a main character. Who's the main character? Is it you? Is it a grandparent? Is it a child? Is it someone in your circle? Who is that main character? And when you meet the main character, you have to think of if you were sitting down with a reporter and you were being interviewed by that reporter, what questions would you predict that reporter would ask you? Because the first thing they're going to do is, actually the magician the other night said something very interesting, something that we use in policing. When you're being interviewed by a police officer, the first thing the police officer will do, because we're trained to read body language, the first thing we'll do is ask you things you're not going to lie about. We're going to say, what's your birthday? And you'll give your birthday. Where do you live? We got your address. Okay. Who's your spouse? We got that. Then we're going to say, did you do it? That's when you're going to go, oh, God, I wasn't expecting that. Well, think about that. So when you're writing a story about yourself, interview yourself. Stand in front of a mirror with a tape recorder or your phone and record your interview. Write down the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and interview yourself. There's your first paragraph, right there. And that's when we learn about the character's world. What is that one image that represents you? If you love whales, if you love hiking, if you love race cars, that's the image that's going to represent you. And then you're just going to expand on that. You're just going to go into who, what, when, where, why. Second paragraph, you're going to talk about something that happened to you in that experience. And then you'll see it'll start to flow. Now, don't worry about if it's only a page or if it's 10 pages. Let it flow. You're going to edit it. Just let it flow. Write down everything. Then in every movie and every book, you have to have a catalyst. And a catalyst is that moment in your life that changes everything. At that moment in your life where you graduate from university, or you get married, you get divorced, you have kids, you have grandkids, you buy that motorcycle of your dreams. You retire, you buy that convertible, and you decide you are going to drive through Italy from toe to top, and you're not going to stop, and you're going to have the life that you dreamt. This is the catalyst, the thing that moves you. And the catalyst is your story when the before world no longer exists. Change is underway. You got that convertible, you got that motorcycle, you're not looking back. This is the catalyst that's going to put you on that dream that you wanted since you were 14 years old. You are going to buy that car, you're going to buy that house, you're going to take that trip. That's your catalyst. Now, regrets, we've all had a few, I'm pretty sure. This is the part of your story that you're going to write about. Did you question yourself along the way? Did you have doubts when you were in university? Did you think, you know what, maybe business is not for me. I should go to engineering. Oh, engineering, I hate engineering. No, maybe I'll go do the sciences. So it's that place. It's those, write about those things. Why did you choose the career you did? What made you change? Did you wonder if you had what it takes? Because this is something children don't realize about their parents or their grandparents, is you think, oh, well, you did it. It was so easy when you did it. But you don't realize. You think that I stood there at depot thinking, hey, I'm the smartest person in the room? Absolutely not. Everybody thinks they're the dumbest person in the room. Many times I wanted to run away crying. Many times I phoned home crying and said, this is not for me. But you know what? You do it, right? And it's that doubt that you need to tell people about. It's important that your children know that you doubt yourself. It really is, because you look, self-assured and everything's easy all the time. It makes their life so much harder. So write the story about the last chance you had before you gave up. And talk about your regrets. And why didn't you give up? What made you go on? Did you need to keep a roof over your children's head? Did you had no other choice? There's no other job for you. You had to do it. Why? Why did you do it? Write about your regrets and how they impacted your life. It's a great place to start. Then, of course, we got a love story. Everybody got a love story. Write about your love story. And you know what? What is your true love story? Because people think, oh, well, I don't know if I've ever been in love. Well, you know what? You have. Here's the thing. Shakespeare wrote, the course of true love never did run smooth. True love is not really about a person. True love is your passion. True love is your hobby that you can't wait to get back to at the end of a workday. It's that career that you can't wait to go to on Monday morning. It's that one thing you can't live without. It's music, it's dance, it's carpentry, it's science, it's justice, it's volunteering, politics. People are so involved in politics today, more so than ever before. But what is your passion? Because your passion is your true love. Write about that. It doesn't have to be about your spouse. Actually, that's a great story. It is a great story. But when you write about something you really love, that hobby, that car, that motorcycle, that trip, that's when the love really comes out. I'm sure you love your spouse, but having a convertible in Italy, that's a pretty good passion there. One of the tricks that we use in writing, little writer's trick, is called okay, and then what? You wrote your first chapter. Okay, then what happens in your story? What's next? So you walked into the room. Okay, and then what? Well, I went up to the bar. Okay, and then what? Then I saw the person I knew I was going to spend my life with. Okay, and then what? So when you have writer's block, and this is how you get writer's block, is you ask them, and then what? This is how you get over your writer's block. Was it a dream? Was it a nightmare? Ask yourself, and then what? Oh my gosh, I had the dream of my life. And then what? Did it turn into a nightmare? And then you ask. So if you put that, actually in my office, I have this printed on a card above my computer. And then what? So when I'm stuck and I can't think of what to say next, I'll say, okay, and then what? What happens? They find the body? They don't find the body? What happens next in this investigation? And then look at all those things you've collected over the year. Do you cling to some items for sentimental value? Like, do you have coins or toys or stamps or dolls or anything you collected? You might have a collection of rare whiskeys. Well, now, imagine your children or grandchildren sending all that to Goodwill. I mean, you'd roll over in your grave. You really would. I mean, think of your grandson taking your 100-year-old whiskey to a frat party and doing shooters out of it, not realizing that probably costs probably costs about $5,000 now. So unless you want that whiskey poured down the drain, you should probably write a story about it. Take those things out and say, look, I collected these whiskeys, I collected these stamps or these dolls, and this is the value of them. And it's really important you do that because it puts an insurance value on them too, because you don't want them sending your stamps that cost thousands of dollars into the value village for someone else to go find. And then think about the family heirlooms. Do you have your mother's pearls, or something valued? My mother gave me a brooch, and it's just a little brooch of a cat. One eye is missing, and it's got a little bit of fur on the bottom. It's no value at all. If it went to the value village, they'd probably just throw it out. But she bought that brooch out of her first paycheck when she first moved into St. John's. That brooch to her represented independence. It was the first time she had a paycheck. It was the first time she had money. So that brooch she wore all the time. I have so many memories of her with that brooch. I now have it framed in a little shadow frame on my wall. And I told my daughter about it because now my daughter will tell her daughter about it someday. This brooch might look like nothing, but this represented back in 1930, when your great-grandmother had found her independence, had moved out and got her first job. That means a lot. That means a lot. So that brooch will stay in my family because the story is written on the back of it. And then think about all of the photo albums you have down in your basement. Start going through those photo albums, because after you're gone, will any of your children or grandchildren know who they are? Mostly not. Take them out. Tell them who's in the photo, but don't just give them one name. Give them the full name. Don't just say Uncle Bob. Say Uncle Bob Smith. Give his birth date, death date. Put some information in there so they know who these people are. I mean, when you look at a picture like this, and I'm sure all of us have pictures like this somewhere in our photo albums or, stored away someone. Why was this picture taken? Was it because someone was proud of this man's service, or was it because they were fearful that this man was never coming back? Is that why it was taken? So think about that when you're writing your story. Take those photo albums out and write some pictures, because those photo albums, they're going in the garbage. So you better tell them who's in those photos and why they're important to you. And then think about all the things you've saved, like old boxes of letters and diaries, and why are you keeping them? Why are you keeping these letters? Was it, because of a long-distance romance that you've got with somebody? Was it because someone wrote you a letter that really changed your life? Explain these. Put these in some kind of an album, and with a note there saying, I kept this letter because, my father wrote this to me when he was serving overseas. That, my best friend wrote this to me when she graduated. Put some context so they know why these things had values. And all the things your children have, I'm sure everybody got a box somewhere in their house full of things that their kids did in school, cards and all kinds of things they made. Put some context to it so they'll know when they're going through it, what is it all about? Anything like anonymous letters that expose something. A lot of people have those. Explain what that is all about. There's always interest and intrigue there. Then, of course, we have family secrets, always form a plot. Every story, every movie, every book has to have a plot. So what is the plot to your story? Do you know some dark family secret? Did you find out you were adopted? Did you find out your sister's really your mother? There's lots of stories out there. Did some force put you into some trek that uncovered something? Let's talk about that. If you take a DNA test and you find out some great information, then write it down. Don't just leave it in Ancestry there for you to look at. Write that story down on what it was all about. That is the plot of your story. And everybody has a plot. A story doesn't work without a plot, but that's where you get it. And if you've done the DNA test, I did the DNA test. I found out so much cool information, and now I write it all down to explain. I was able to trace everything back. One of the things I found was that my son's name is Daniel. On my mother's side, I have 5 great-grandfathers going back whose name was Daniel. I never knew. So it was so interesting to find these things out. So I wrote a little story for him. I just sent it in an email and said, look, here's the story. I just picked your name, but I had no idea that I was picking this from generations past. You're named after so many great-grandfathers who came from Ireland, joined the famine, and went to Texas. Actually, I found out that my great-grandfather was actually born in Texas. I'm a Texan. I didn't even know that. So I always thought I was Irish. I'm an Irish Texan. And then he came to Newfoundland to go fishing. So, I'm Irish, I'm a Texan, and I'm a Newfoundlander. How interesting is that? So I wrote that story because that's the story that, nobody ever knew about before. Then you're going to set the setting. And the setting, when you think about every book, every movie you see, the setting is so important. Where are you from? Did you grow up in some ancient castle in Scotland, or maybe, up in the Bronx or on a farm? Where did you grow up to? And think about what did that smell like? What did it sound like? What did it look like? What triggers you to go back to that place you came from? For me, it's homemade bread. When I smell homemade bread, I go right back to my mother's kitchen. That can bring me back to childhood. I instantly remember having homemade bread and putting molasses over it right out of the oven, and me and my siblings fighting over it. That's what triggers me. So think about what triggers you to go back. That will be your setting. Also think about, who was your best friend growing up? Why were they your best friend growing up? Tell the story of how that happened. I've had a best friend since we were born. We're born across the street from each other. And you could put her in Guantanamo Bay and she will never tell you the secrets of our childhood. And I would never tell her secrets. But writing that story, because kids today don't have that. They don't have that best friend from birth where they grew up playing on the street, and everything now is on social media, and friends are so fickle, and you're either in this group, you're not in this group. Social media can be so harmful, and they don't realize you could have friends for 30, 40, 50, 60 years and still be friends with them. Tell that story of friendship, because that might unlock something for them. And then think about your school days. Where did you go to school? Did you go to private school, public school? Where was your school located to? Did you have to walk uphill both ways? Is that the story you're going to tell? But tell that story of your school days, because that's always great. Kids enjoy. Kids love when you read to them, right? They love when you read to them. So when you tell the story of your school days, that enlightens them, because it's so drastically different from the school days they have right now. And of course, did you live through a traumatic event in your childhood? What happened in your childhood? Was there an earthquake? Was there a fire? Was there something that completely shook up your world? Talk about those traumatic events. That's what setting is all about. And then, what is the setting of your story? Only you would know that. I can't tell you what the setting of your story is. Only you would know that. And then you have to have interesting characters. Every family has interesting characters. You always have the good person. You always have the person who causes all the trouble. You always have the person in between who's a peacemaker. Every family has those characters. So talk about it. Did your mother ride with Jesse James, and she was a notorious female outlaw, but she changed her name because she didn't want to go to jail? Was your brother wanted by the FBI? Could he be D.B. Cooper? Maybe that's what the story is. There's always great stories in a family. Every story needs a villain. If you talk to an actor, they will tell you, I would rather play the villain than the good person, because the villain has so much more fun. And people love the villain more than they love the good person, because everybody knows in the moment of decision, you could easily become a villain. You could easily become the person who pulls the trigger if the situation was right. If nobody was looking and you thought you could get away with it, there's a lot of people who could do some villain type things. And then think about, did you do something great in your life? Was your grandfather an engineer who maybe, built a bridge that's still there today? Was your grandmother the first woman to graduate from law school? Did your father fight in World War II? What did you do that no one else did? Talk about that, because that's so interesting. Kids Kids are born knowing their parents are heroes. But when you can really put that cape on, when you can say, I did something that no one else did, that's impressive. That's going to be a story they want to read. They want to know about that story. Because every story needs a hero. And then death. Death changes families. Changes families. In policing, we get more calls from funerals than you would believe, honestly. More fights break out at funeral homes than I would care to admit. Roles change when people die. You know, people may behave out of character. How did death change your family? You know, did it change the course of who you became in your life? Did you not go to college because your father passed away and you had to go to work and support your family? How did death change your family? It causes conflict. Every story has conflict. So, and we need, in a story, you need conflict. You can't have a story that's just a happy story from start to finish. There has to be conflict in your story. So write about the conflict in your life. And everybody has conflict in their life, whether it's big or small. Write about that conflict. You'd be surprised how therapeutic it is to write about the conflict you've had in your life. Believe me, you read my books, you'll find every one of my siblings are in my books. There was a lot of conflict solved in my books. Then we have what's called in media the dark night of the soul. Now, this is the story. This is when the story is when your character hits rock bottom. All is lost. This is the why has the Lord forsaken me? Why am I going through this? Why does everything happen to me? Why does all these things happen to me? That's what we call the dark night of the soul. That's when Superman loses his powers and he's on his knees and he can't get up. That's the dark night of the soul. This is where we mourn the loss of the dream. The person we loved has walked away from us. The divorce has happened. We've lost the house. We've lost everything. We've lost everything we worked for. And this is the story of where you pick yourself up. This is the part in your story where you've lost everything, you're on your knees, and you're about to give up. But then you look up and you see the sun and you get up. You get yourself out of it and you pull yourself out of that debt and you pull yourself up and get that house. You get that career. You make it work because you have no choice. This is the dark night of the soul. It's a story about survival. This is where you survive. You survive something. It's when the hero decides that they're never going to give up and they get that inspiration. They're going to move on. Superman is going to get his powers back. That's the story you need to write about. That's what your generations after you, they're going to want to know. Look, my grandparents, my parents, they lost everything. But you know what? They got up. They did what they had to do, and they got it back. And I come from that stock, and I'm going to do that too. Then we have the grand finale. The ending sometimes is hard. It's just as hard to write as the beginning because you never know when to really end a book. But you'll find that the right ending is the one that just feels inevitable. It just feels right. You just sit back and go, oh, okay, this is where it ends. And just imagine when you're writing that story, that ending, imagine your children reading this story and going, oh, I had no idea that my mother was like this. I had no idea my father did that. That's what you want to get from that story when they read it. And then you have to decide, is this where the story ends or is there a sequel? Could you keep writing? Because listen, every decade you can write a biography. Every decade. So this is the ending is where you prove that change has happened. You're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You've changed from the beginning. From you look at yourself as a young person at 20. Now you're a senior citizen. You've retired. You've changed so much. You've been so many people over the years. You've changed careers multiple times. You might have changed partners multiple times. You've added children, grandchildren. Change has happened. And now you're going to capture it. And this is where you capture it too, at the grand finale. Now, this is where you go out and you write your story before somebody else does. Start your story. When I wrote In Search of Adventure, and I talked to these 70 people who I had interviewed, every one of them said to me, I don't think you're going to get enough out of me to write a story. I don't know if my life was that interesting. But when they start to talk, And I go, oh, and then what happened? Then they'd start talking again and telling the story, and even they were shocked at how interesting they were. So once again, you don't have to be a celebrity to write a biography like this. Don't think about writing and publishing. Write that biography for yourself. It's therapeutic. Write it for your children and your grandchildren so they know who you are and what you went through to become who you are. And that's the story that they will carry with them. And I promise you, if you do that, and it doesn't have to be 1,000 pages, it could be 20 pages, it could be 10 pages, but if you put that together and you give it to your children or your grandchildren for Christmas, I tell you, that is a gift that they will cry over and they will keep forever, and it will mean the world to them. So capture your stories. If anybody got any questions, please put up your hand and I can answer them the best I can. We're all going to go back now and write our biographies. One of the things, too, and I say, especially for, I'm a senior citizen, too, is that the sit down and type and type and type can be really hard sometimes. I just take my phone out and record myself and send myself emails. When I get a story idea, I just record it on the phone. And then when I go home, I'll just take it and clean it up and write it, too. It's a lot easier than just sitting there at a computer continuously typing. No questions? We're good? All right, well, thank you for coming. I hope I entertained you, and I hope to see some biographies in Christmas time. Give that gift. Your kids are going to love it. Thanks so much for coming.